I'm Christina May, the online pastor at World Harvest Church in Enid, Oklahoma. You're about to hear a spirit-filled message from our pastor. So grab your Bible, and if you're a coffee lover like me, grab a cup of coffee and get ready for a personal word that God has for you today.
Oh man, I couldn't be more excited to be with you today, in case you didn't know. If you don't like excited, you're in the wrong place. Because honestly, I feel like even to start, I gotta say this, worship was amazing. It's so much fun to be here. I genuinely mean it. Because there's something we gotta know before we even begin. The devil's a liar. Amen. He's a liar. If you're walking into this place saying to yourself, yeah, Kinsley, you don't understand what I'm going through, guess what? It doesn't matter. I don't need to know because the devil's a liar. He serves one purpose. That's it. One purpose. To steal everything good that God has put in your life, to kill any vision and promise that God has given you, and to destroy you from getting to where God wants you to go. That's it. That's his whole point. That's his whole point. So because we serve a God that knows the end from the beginning, we're going to start at the end first. And the end is this. The devil's a liar, and that Jesus has the victory in your situation. I don't care how big the giant is. I don't care what the giant's name is. It doesn't matter how big the walls are that you feel like you have to crash through to get to the promised land, because God doesn't care about the walls. He doesn't care about the giant, because he gave you the promised land to go out and take. Amen. The devil's a liar. And one of the things that I've realized more and more through this amazing series, I hope you've enjoyed it. Well, I don't know if you've enjoyed it. Actually, it's been very difficult. That's how you know a great series, when you're in a great series, is when you don't like it because it hurts too bad. At first, I was like, oh man, this is really good. And then the second week, Pastor was preaching, I was like, I'm not sure I like that. And the third week, I'm like, okay, I'm not sure I like this series at all. This is really painful. There's been a lot of realizations and revelations I've had in this series. One of which, when Pastor, you remember a couple weeks ago when he says, how many quitters do we have in the room? My hand was up. Because I've been a quitter. I guess I'm the only one. I've been a quitter. And when he said, how many campers? I would love to think that I'm a climber most of the time. But the reality is, if I was really honest with myself, yeah, I'm a camper too. I've been a camper too. And he said, how many climbers? Oh, everybody gets excited about that. Yeah, I'm a vision-driven person. Yes, we're going to take the mountain. But I actually spend very little time climbing, if I was honest with myself. I spent a lot of time in my life standing at the bottom of the mountain at base camp saying, man, that's a tall mountain. It's probably going to take a lot of work to get there. I'm not sure I have the supplies for that. You know, next year sounds like a good time for that. Look at this bubbling brook down here in the base camp. I think I'll just stay right here. This is nice. You know what's funny about trips? As we think about what it means, because this series has literally changed my life. It's forced me to think. Say that with me. Say, think. It's forced me to think. And the thing about thinking is it's taken me from thinking to doing instead of just sitting. See, you can do a lot of thinking and planning, but if there's no doing, then the thinking did you no good. A lot of people say, hey, when are you going? We need to take a vacation. When are you going to go? Someday. Good news. Well, that's great. Someday is never going to happen. Someday will always be tomorrow. Always. And as we think about knowing that the devil is a liar, he makes me so mad. The devil has no new tricks. He has one simple trick. To deceive you into getting your attention off of the promise that God has given you and onto the magnitude of the situation. If he can get you not focused on the land and the promise that you're supposed to take and that he's placed in your heart, but instead he gets you focused on the giants that stand in your way and the walls that you're gonna have to break through and how you may not be strong enough to do it, that's all he has to do. Because you eliminate yourself from the promised land. The devil's not gonna try to fight you. He knows what's inside of you. That's why he tries to get your attention off of it. Yeah, I think we're done here. Maybe that was it, Pastor. Good. You guys get 26 minutes left. The devil doesn't need to spend his time focusing on you. All he has to do is get your mind off of the power. That's it. You know, it's amazing. You know, yes, it's Labor Day. People are traveling. That's great. If you're traveling, wonderful. One of the things I love about traveling as a parent is it gives you so many opportunities for patience. Traveling is a training ground inside itself. Praise God. You know what I always find it interesting? When we travel somewhere, normally living here in good old Enid, Oklahoma, you have about an hour to travel really anywhere you want to, hour and a half, maybe 2, maybe 6, maybe 10, don't know where you're going, but you got plenty of time to travel. One of the things I love about traveling is it gives you about every 10 minutes as a parent the opportunity to intrinsically explore why you're not there yet. Every 10 minutes, it's amazing. If you're going 60 miles an hour, you got 10 times throughout that 60 miles, you get to explore the reason in the parent, the intrinsic, just the psychology behind why are we not there yet? And you know, the first time is like, because we'll be there in 50 minutes. And then the next time your child asks, sweet little Caden and Hadley, are we there yet? You know, 10 minutes later, you're like, no, why? I don't know. And then it starts breaking you down as a person. You're like, Lord, why are we not there yet? I don't know. Are we there yet? Does there even exist? I don't know. What do I know? But how many times, you know, it's funny because I look at my children and I laugh because I'm like, oh, kids, they don't understand what it means to get there. But then the Lord corrected me and said, you know, you ask me that same question a lot. Like, what are you talking about? I told you where you were going to go, but the only thing that you focus on is the fact that you're not there yet. Well, God, I'm not sure I've done that. I'm pretty sure you have. I can count numerous times you've been on your knees crying, saying, God, why? Where are you? Am I the only one? I'll continue until you chime in. God, where are you? Why are we not there yet? God, I thought you had something good for me. God, I thought you put in a promise in my life. God, I thought you gave me the promise land. You said that I was going to go here, and we had that worship night, and you said, I'm going to show up and show off in your life, and people are going to call, and they're going to say, to bring those worshipers here. All of these things are going to happen. Where are you? Are we there yet? You know, another funny thing that happens, and I'm glad this is just me. I'm glad you guys don't ever have this experience. I'm glad this is just me. Another funny thing that happened is we went to Oklahoma City with the kids, and we had so much fun. It was great. We went to the little go-kart thing and Chuck E. Cheese and all these places. And we were driving back, and I think it was Caden that said it. He said, no, it was Hadley. It was Hadley. She's my daughter, 7 years old. Awesome. She's going to take over the world to serve Jesus. But she said, where are we going now? I said, we're going home. She said, oh. I thought we were actually doing something today. What? I thought we were actually doing something today. Today was yes day. Anything you want to do, we said yes to. I'm feeling pretty good about myself as a dad, and Brooke's feeling pretty good. We're like, hey, this is parent of the year right here. This is wonderful. Today was yes day. What do you mean? She said, well, I mean, we started off at home, and we're going to end up at home. All in all, we really didn't do anything. And if it wasn't for this psychological moment where I'm like, oh my gosh, she's right. We've done a whole lot of work and we're ending up in the same spot that we were. And then I'm questioning myself as a parent. My gosh, maybe we should have stayed in a hotel in Oklahoma City. Then that would have validated this whole experience. And because we're going right back to where we started. Oh my gosh, I'm the children of Israel. Hadley, you're right, I'm a terrible parent. We're just going to, the network was zero. We showed up right where we left off. And then reality hits me. I'm like, you know what? I feel like I've been doing that for the last 5 years. I do a lot of going, a lot of working, a lot of good ideas, thinking that I'm going to get somewhere, and I end up in the same spot. Now again, I'm glad this is just me and you've never experienced this before in your life, I'm very glad, because I would never want you to have to walk through that. But today's message, this moment that we have together, if you're just coming here to listen to me talk, that's a total waste of time. If you're here to hear what God has to say in your life and to transform where you're at and not just stay in the same spot, but instead allow God to take you to somewhere new, now that's exciting. Yeah. That's useful. That's expectation. Today, this what we're talking about today is for those who at some point in their life have said, or maybe you're saying right now, God, are we there yet? You said you had a promise for me. Are we there yet? Or maybe you said this, I've done all this work and I'm right back to where I started again. I actually haven't done anything in the last 5 years. I've done everything I thought I could do and I'm in the same spot I was 5 years ago. Or maybe you're saying, you know, Kinsley, thanks a lot for pointing that out. Really appreciate this. This is the last time I'm going to listen to you because I already knew I was stuck. I just don't know where to go to get out of being stuck. I've been camping for a long time and I want to not camp, but I don't know how to not camp because all I have been doing is camping. Thank you very much. Maybe you're saying that. This is for you today. Because the good news is that I've been a camper too, and there's been many times in my life where I like the idea of climbing, but I don't actually want to do the work. I love looking at the mountain. I love to talk as though I know what I'm talking about climbing the mountain, but I don't actually want to do the work to get there. If that's you, good news. We're in this thing together. And it's not just you. Frankly, if you weren't here, I'd just put a mirror because I'm preaching to myself. This is my personal moment with God. It's because so many times when we look at being stuck and we look at this camping mindset of just hanging out where you're at, the funny thing is, it doesn't matter how you got stuck. It doesn't matter how long you've been stuck. Those things don't matter. The only thing that matters is that what you're going to do while you're stuck. Yeah. See, there's a difference. Pastor was talking about camping. Had this realization. Lord brought this to me. There's a difference between a training camp and a base camp. See, a training camp, the purpose of a training camp, it has a mission, a focus, a vision. A training camp is very intentional. It has the purpose of the place of growth, of expectation. That I'm not staying here, I'm only here for a little bit of time, and I have to focus while I'm here because where I'm going is not staying here, I'm going to the mountain. I'm going to the promised land, so in order to get there, I have to use the time that I have while I'm here, and I may still be at camp, but there's a reason because I'm gonna leave this place. But a base camp is different because it's a neutral point. It's a neutral point used while you're waiting. While you're waiting for the venture to start, while you're waiting for something to happen, while you're waiting to ascend to the mountain, it's a neutral point that is safe and secure location for you to return back to. And that's why I say, I'm not gonna project upon you. All I can talk to in my own life. I have built a very nice base camp in my life. That when I fail or when I stumble, I just go back and I pull myself back and I seclude myself and I go back to my nice little happy place because that's where it's safe, that's where it's secure, that's where I don't have to worry about putting myself out there and thinking what other people think about me or doing anything. I'm just gonna go where I'm safe and I'm not gonna worry about that. You know, it's funny, it's interesting because the children of Israel said the same thing. Why don't we just go back to Egypt? If I was God, I wouldn't have even responded. I take that back. I would have responded. I would have flicked my finger with fire and just been like, pow. Why don't we just go back to Egypt? What? What? Whoa, hold on. Let's go back to, okay. You want to go back to Egypt. Here's the funny thing. When you talk about where you're stuck, am I the only one in my life that I've just been camping out at times? I've just been camping, chilling. Am I the only one? Okay, good. I thought I'd have to get a different crowd of people in here. So there have been times, and it's really interesting when you think about what a training camp is as opposed to a base camp. Did you know that mountain climbers, I'm talking about, there's this crazy movie, it's called Free Solo. Is it El Capitan that he climbs? The dude, no ropes, no safety nets, no nothing, climbs barehanded up a mountain. Do you think he was one day working as an accountant somewhere and was like, you know what I think I'm going to do? I think I'm going to go scale a multi-thousand-foot mountain right now with no ropes. I'll get a Starbucks on the way and we're going to do this. It's great. No, he didn't. In fact, mountain climbers, for the most part, spend 240 hours focusing on grip strength. I'm talking about grips that if you, like, zoom in. What camera are we at? Are we with this one? I want you to zoom in. They're hanging on to the ledge by that much of their finger. I can't hang, yeah, that's a close shot. Woo. That much of their finger they're hanging on to. I can't hang on to the cliff if I had a rope and both arms around it. They're hanging on by the fingertips. I spend 240 hours on average just to build wrist strength, arm strength, leg strength, core strength, so they can be sprawled out like Spider-Man. And holding themselves there by their pinky toes and their pinkies. Before they ever even think about going to the mountain. Many of us, self-included, I've spent a lot of time looking at the mountain and I've spent no time preparing for the mountain. And that's why oh my gosh, who was that? Yeah, that's right, I spent a lot of time looking at the mountain and no time preparing to climb it. I just keep on staring at it saying, that is a mountain. That is a big mountain. There's a lot to do. You know, the Olympics just got done, right? Anybody watch the Olympics? Gold medals? You know what's interesting? Okay, nobody has watched the Olympics? Okay, good. All right, screen, I'm gonna talk to you. It was fun. No, nobody has watched. Online, yeah, I'll talk to you guys. Did you know that for each gold medalist, every gold medalist represents 13 years of focused training? 13 years. That most Olympians, if they want to be an Olympian, start training between the ages of 3 years old, between 3, I'm not kidding you. Start in some capacity training towards that, 3 to 4 years old. And if you have not started training for an Olympian by 14, cut it. You're not going to. That means that in order for you to be an Olympian, you would not be preparing for the Olympics 4 years from now or 8 years from now. You would be preparing and training today for the Olympics 12 years from now. I can't stay committed to wake up at 5:30 to read my Bible sometimes. That alarm isn't more powerful than my bed. I'm just saying. You want to think, oh my gosh, Kinsley's unsanctified. Yeah, you're right. Welcome to the club. 13 years of commitment it takes. Did you know during the Revolutionary War that if it wasn't for the winter of 1777 when George Washington and the Continental Army retreated, they didn't have the warmth, they didn't have jackets, they were freezing, they were cold, they didn't have food. The Continental Congress hadn't yet provided them the resources they need because we weren't even a nation yet. We didn't have money to spend to send them anywhere. We were trying to do the best we could. Did you know that many historians believe that if the winter of 1777 didn't happen and that George Washington's army didn't have that time to train, that we would not exist as a nation? We'd be talking British with a spot of tea and no coffee. No, thank you. Do you think it was fun for George Washington and his people as they were sitting there freezing, fighting frostbite, with the British just mere miles away? No, it wasn't fun. But looking back on it, if they had not taken that time to train, if they had not taken the time to have Marquis the Frenchman train them in military ways to not just be a bunch of farmers with pitchforks, but to be a lethal fighting militia, if they had not had the winter where they almost died to train, we wouldn't be a nation. And in the moment, they were wishing that away. But if they didn't go through it, we never would have won. Isn't it funny that how much time we can spend wishing things away instead of using them to our advantage to train? Since you're with me, let's go to Numbers. I'm just going to bring you up to speed real quick. Stay with me. Numbers chapter 13. So the children of Israel, you're familiar with this. God's people, they spent 430 years in slavery in Egypt. That's right. That means your children and your children's children and your children's children don't know what it means to be anything other than a slave. no one existing in Israel knew what it meant to be free, except Moses. So I'll remind you, in this, what we're about to read about, God had sent Moses. Moses answered the call. Moses went. The Lord brought 10 plagues upon 10 supernatural plagues. You're impressed with a pandemic. Wait until a river turns into blood. Come on. We're worried about this? Get out of here. COVID not got nothing. 10 plagues, rivers turning into blood. The Egyptians finally let them go. Then they get to the river, or they get to the Red Sea. The Egyptians are coming down. They say, oh my gosh, why don't we just go back to Egypt? Does that sound familiar? Oh my gosh, I just want to go back to base camp where it's comfortable. God's like, you little minions, watch this. Opens the Red Sea. Not only that, here, let's put a pillar of fire to stop your enemies while we're doing it. As if that's not enough, then they just walk them little selves right through the Red Sea. And even after all of that, yeah, they praise God for a little bit, but then they forget about the promise that he's given because he said in the very beginning, I have a promised land for you to get to. But what do they look at the entire time? They forget about the promise and they focus on the enemy. Yeah, God, I know you said you got a promised land for us to get to, but look at the enemy coming down. Okay, I'll open the Red Sea. Go through it. Oh, I didn't think about that. Okay. So they spend this time, as they do, arguing with themselves, and they finally get to the promised land. The promised land that God had promised them and said, listen, I have a place for you. This is to you. God has given you a promise in your life. He's given you a vision of, I don't care if you're 45 years old, I don't care if you're 18 years old. When God speaks a promise, his clock doesn't run out. It doesn't matter what you think about it, that it's over and that it'll never happen. God didn't ask you what you thought about it. He just gave you the promise. If he needed your opinion, he would ask for it, and he didn't. What he did do is he placed in you a passion and a fire and a promise that the enemy has tried to squelch and crush in you your entire life. You know why? Because the enemy knows if you realize the promised land and you actually get there, he's toast. So what does he do? Distract you. So that's where we're at. So the children of Israel, they pick up, they get 12 spies together. Of those spies are Caleb and Joshua. And they go into the land. Let's pick it up here. Verse 27, 13, verse 27, if we can throw it up there. Then they told him and said, we went to the land where you sent us, and it truly flows with milk and honey, and it is its fruit. Interestingly, that's exactly what God said it would be. Go figure. So there's these 10 spies, and they say, well, we showed up, and just like God said it was, yeah, it's flowing with all the goodness. I got an Arby's, it's amazing. Nevertheless, oh, God, are you kidding me? Nevertheless, the people who dwelt in the land are strong people. The cities are fortified and very large, and moreover, we saw the descendants of Enoch there. Keep going. 30. Let's jump down. Jump down to verse 30. Then Caleb and Joshua, remember? Then Caleb said, whoa. You just said that this is exactly as God promised. Hold on. So Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, let us go up at once and take possession, for we are able to overcome it. See, Caleb wasn't focused on the giant. He didn't care. He was focused on the promise that God told him. God didn't ask him how big the giants were. God didn't ask him to go look at the land and see how big the walls were. All God told him to do is, I'm going to take you to the promised land for you to be able to go and take it. And where I say that you're going to go, I will go with you and before you. And I will set a table for you to dine in the midst of your enemy. I don't care how big the enemy is. What I care about is that you're going to get to the promised land. Next. But the men who had gone up with him said, we're not able to go against the people, for they're strong, stronger than we are. Next. And they gave the children of Israel the bad report of the land, which they spied on. The land through which we have gone in as spies into the land that devours its inhabitants, and all the people whom we saw are men of great stature. Next. There we saw the giants. The descendants of Enoch came from the giants. And we were like grasshoppers in their own sight. and we're grasshoppers in our sight. How much time have you been spending focusing on the giants instead of the promise? The funny thing is that you look at this, is that the other spies weren't lying. They were telling the truth. There were giants in the land, and the walls were very big. It's not like they were lying. It was 100% true. Just like the doctor's report. In the natural, it may be true. Just like the bank account, infinitely approaching zero, that may be true. Just like the spouse getting fed up and saying, listen, you're more of a friend than you are a partner, I'm leaving. The fact that those words were said, that may be true. But the funny thing is not what the truth of the situation is, because the situation is not defined by the situation. The situation is defined by what God is about to do in this situation. And the funny thing is that they were operating out of the fear of what the situation was. And you know what they called it? Wisdom. They said, you're right, this is probably wise that we not go. If you operate cautiously, your friends will call you wise, but you won't take any mountains. You can operate cautiously and you can stay at base camp all you want. And 5 years later, you will come back asking the same question, why am I still in the same spot, doing the same thing with the same mindset, struggling with the same things? Why? It's because you listen to the fear of the situation instead of the promise of the king. All the enemy wants to do is distract you from what the actual truth is. Because when you look at what Joshua and Caleb saw, they weren't focused on what the circumstance were. They were focusing on the fact that for 430 years they had been enslaved, but God showed up. And then brought 10 plagues, which they saw with their own eyes. Joshua and Caleb were focused on the fact that God gave us a promise. He said he would deliver us from Israel, and he did. He opened up the Red Sea. He brought down a cloud of fire. He delivered us into this place. The land that he told us he was going to give us is exactly what he said. Let's go. I'm taking my land. But no one else was prepared. So what happened? They spent 40 years. See, God will wait until we're willing to train at the right time so that we're prepared to take our land. So much so, God's promise didn't change. The only thing that changed is that he realized there was only 2 people in the nation of Israel that had the mindset that were focused on the promise, and they were going to stay there. And they were going to take the land. Everybody else, nobody else in the generation lived. Joshua and Caleb remained because they were focused on the promise, not the enemy. What is the promise God has placed in your life? You know, in my own life, I can say that I have felt this urgency. The last 3 years, I asked the Lord, what would I do? You know, I'm at the end of my military career. At the end, 12 years, my commitment is up as a pilot. I've loved the military, love serving. It's been amazing. But I felt this, like, God, what do I do? I feel like there's something different, a different direction you want me to go, but do I get out? Do I stay in? I have kids to take care of. The benefits are great. But I really want to step into what you have, but where's the money going to come from? Like, what? Am I the only one? But God, what would you do? And you know what I told God? Stupidly, I can't believe I said this. God, I'm not moving until you show up. I'm not budging. I'm not moving. And the one thing he told me for 3 years, he didn't tell me where to go. He didn't tell me what to do. He didn't tell me what job to apply for. He didn't tell me any of that. The only thing is, he grabbed my little cheeks, these little flapper jaws, and he pulled me in close and he said, I need you with an urgency, almost like an emergency urgency. I need you to learn everything you can in this time. God, for what? Like, what's going on? Why? I need you to learn everything you can. I don't need you to lead. I need you to learn. I don't need you to speak. I need you to listen. And then for 3 years, it was total silence. My 12 years in the military came up, passed. Still at the base, people are like, hey, what are you doing? You want to go to command school? You want to do this? I was given some great opportunities, some amazing opportunities that a lot of people around me are like, I cannot believe you turned that down. I cannot believe you did. Why would you say no to that? And the only thing I knew is that God had not yet told me to go. In that time, it was the last 3 years have been the most desolate, quiet, hard places. You want to talk about mental angst and strain? Oh my gosh. Not knowing what I should do, not wanting to disappoint God, not that God would be disappointed, but I truly, honest to goodness, just wanted to do what it is that he had for me to do. You know, in Acts 16, we see this, that Paul and Silas, they were preaching the message. They were going around, and the Holy Spirit told them, don't go there. Don't preach the word there. Like, what? For real? I said, yeah, don't preach there. Go. They went to the next place, and the Holy Spirit again said, nope, not here either. Go somewhere else. You know what's interesting about the training camp is that training camp teaches you where your strengths are, and it teaches you what your weaknesses are. You may not yet be to the promised land of where you want to go, but you had better darn well start preparing and be ready for it. Because I promise you, when the door opens, it's not going to be fun. It's going to look like work. In fact, the promised land may actually look like total defeat. But the only reason you will know that you will succeed is because of the work and the faith that you have put in the times that it was hard. Every monumental victory requires action and direction. Action in a direction. In James chapter 2, it says that faith doesn't involve action that is phony. It says, dear brothers and sisters, what good is it if someone claims to have faith but demonstrates no good works to prove it? How could this kind of faith save anyone? For example, if a brother or sister in faith is poorly clothed and hungry and you leave them saying goodbye, I hope you stay warm and have plenty to eat, that does them no good. But if you don't provide them a coat or soup to drink, what good is your faith? Faith without works, with the application of your faith in action, is phony. And the amazing thing is that the children of Israel looked at that moment that they had when they got to the promised land, and the truth was, in that moment, their faith was phony. They said they believed God, they said they trusted God, they said that they would follow him anywhere, but only 2 were willing to put it to action. We see this time and time again in the Bible, right? Noah, did it start raining and then he started building the ark? No. The dude built the ark for almost 100 plus years. And everybody was like, you're an idiot, it's not gonna rain. Interestingly, God didn't move until his preparations were complete that would allow him to succeed. God didn't start the rain down until Noah was ready to ride the wave. If you're anything like me, all I can tell you is that I have spent more time saying, God, when are we gonna get there? But God has been saying to me, when are you going to prepare so I can take you there? You sit here and I'm only talking to myself, I'll just talk to myself. You sit here and complain that I'm not moving, but you're not doing anything about it. I'm a loving father. Do you think I want to destroy you in the thing that is supposed to be the promise? See, a father doesn't do that. A father loves so much that even when his children don't get the point, yeah, he may have to start over and do a reset, but he loves them so much, he'll give them another chance in another desert. Did you know that when the children of Israel got to the promised land, they had traveled through the desert? It took them a little bit. Historians say it should have taken them 11 days. It took them longer. But a journey that should have only taken them 11 days to get there took 40 years because God loved you so much that he said, I'm not gonna take you where your faith can't hold you. I will wait on you. The hardest thing that I've had to realize is that I'm not waiting on God. It's so easy to play the victim. It's so easy to blame God for this and blame God for that and say, God, you're not showing up, and God, you didn't do this, and God, you didn't do that, and I can't believe that you're just leaving me out here alone. And again, I can only talk to myself. The hard thing to realize is that the time that I spent where I thought God wasn't listening was the time that I should have been in the training camp, not relaxing in the base camp. I should have been getting ready for the climb. I should have been strengthening myself in my faith and my actions, and not just allowing the moment to pass, but instead preparing for when the climb would come and when the door opened, that I'm ready to go to the promised land. You know what the amazing thing is in that, there's almost a moment where I want to have regret for what I didn't do. The enemy's a liar. He'll try to hold that over your head and say, you wasted 20 years, Kinsley. And then he'll try to gouge it at you and say, the promise that you had when you were 18 is different when you're 38 because you're not as young as you used to be. Now, certainly it's different. God's not going to use you in that way. But the funny thing is that I, in my life, have spent more time listening to what the enemy has said about God instead of listening what God has said about me. See, he spends a lot of time saying, God's not going to do that in your life. And I listen to it. And then I believe it. And then I don't get to go to the promised land. The amazing thing is that Jesus always gives an example. He always gives an example. See, Jesus isn't going to ask us to do anything that he hasn't been willing to do himself. When you look at Matthew 27, as Jesus was hanging on the cross, even the disciples, you know, we just did communion. They were having communion, and Jesus was talking about, this is my body broken for you. This is my blood shed for you. And I can only imagine being a disciple, be like, whoa, 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 whoa. You're the king of the Jews. What are you talking about? You have a kingdom here on earth that you're supposed to take. You're not going anywhere. And as Jesus hung on the cross, the Pharisees and the Sadducees said the same thing. In Matthew, in the Passion Translation 27, it says, and those who passed shook their heads, ridiculing Jesus, saying, we heard that you could destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days. Ha! Why don't you save yourself now? If you're really God, then come down off that cross. Even the ruling priests with the Jewish scholars and the religious leaders joined into the mockery saying, and they kept saying, yeah, he saved others. He can't even save himself. Israel's king is he. If he's the king, then why doesn't he pull the nails out of his hand and his feet and hop down off the cross right now? And then we'll believe him. How many times has the enemy said the same thing to you? You think you're a child of God? I know what you did Saturday night. You're not a child of God. You're a sinner. You think that God is still going to fulfill that promise of what he's done, of what he spoke to you? Oh, come on, get real. You just need to stay in the same place you've been for the last while, because that's as good as it's going to get. God can't use you because you're washed up. If you really think you're a child of God, then set yourself free. Jesus always leads by example. The amazing thing is, we've been waiting for so long. I've been waiting for so long for God to say go. But in order for him to go, in order for me to be able to get there, I had to show that I was willing to stay. Jesus knew he was the Son of God. But in order to be able to prepare the blessing for us, he had to stay. and to go through the training and the torment and the pain to deliver the blessing. What the Pharisees and Sadducees were saying in the situation, it was all true. Jesus did say that the temple would be torn down and rebuilt in 3 days. He did save other people. Everything that the Pharisees and Sadducees and everybody said, it was the truth of the situation. And Jesus could have listened to it, honestly, because he was a man in the flesh, just like men and women in this room and online are. But in order to get to the promised land, he knew that he had to stay. Friends, today, if you're anything like me, there are many areas in your life where you may feel stuck. You may be saying to yourself, Kinsley, I've been camping a long time. As we get ready to close, if you don't mind standing to your feet, you can say, Kinsley, this is great and all, but I don't think you actually understand. Like, I lost the ability to do, I know the promise God gave me, but it's over. The funny thing is that who said it's over? Did God tell you it's over? Did God tell you to stop dreaming of what he had placed in your heart? Did God tell you that you will never get there? Or have you just been listening to the giants that are standing in the way? This morning, as the prayer team comes up, I want you, if you will, just look at me. I want you to be as raw and real with yourself more than you ever have in your life. Because I'll stand before you telling you that God does show up through the silence. He shows up in the training camp. He shows up in the times when it seems like you're gonna have to just keep on working and keep on pushing forwards. And yes, the promised land hasn't shown up yet, but God shows up. The reason why I know that is because I had a conversation with Pastor. We sat down several times. I'm sure at this point, I mean, his patience is amazing because I've brought my sob stories to him several times. Very patient man. And I remember I was going there hoping that God had given him some wisdom, some moment. He was like, this is God through Brad. And that something magical was gonna happen. And he said the most infuriating thing ever in the moment to me, in my flesh. It's very frustrated. He said, if you're listening for God and you know what his promise is, take a step. Is it possible you just need to take a step and he'll bless you? It's not what I wanted to hear. No, I wanted clearly written out directions of what I was supposed to do and where I was supposed to go. But the funny thing is he's 100% right. God had put the promise in my life and he said that I will bless you. I will never leave you nor forsake you. I'm not hanging you out to dry, but instead you are blessed and not cursed. I'm not going to turn my back on you because I have given you all power and authority in my name. So go. The Israelites were concerned about the men and the giants in the land, and they forgot about the giant that was inside of them. The reason why I can tell you is that if you're willing to train and take a step and trust God that the blessing, that your promised land is real, he will show up. So after that conversation, I started doing exactly that. I said, Lord, I don't know what it looks like, but you know what? I'm gonna start stepping through doors, and if the door's supposed to open, great, I'll walk through it. And if it's supposed to shut, then great, it'll be shut. And I thought in my Christianese, this is perfect. God's gonna open the doors. So I applied for a job. Felt really great about it. In fact, I was told it was a wonderful interview. Didn't get it. Okay, God, I know you say this is a promised land. I know you say there's a promised land. Another job came available. I was like, oh, this is perfect. He's just waiting until the last minute like he does, and he's gonna show up. Go apply, feel great about it. Even better than I felt the first time, didn't get it. God is the God of threes. Surely it's gonna show up again. Sure enough, job shows up, apply for it, didn't get it. Silence is a hard thing. And then I get a phone call. And the phone call was, I've been working in the innovation space for a long time. Essentially solve problems is what I do. I get a call and said, hey, we have this position. One of the senior leaders of the Air Force needs to stand up a team of 5 people to solve the Air Force's innovation problems and connect people and to make sure that we're headed the right direction. Are you interested? I was like, glory! I said, yes, I'm interested. What do I have to do? You got to move to the Pentagon. I'm sorry, I can't. Stick with me just for a second. When you know God's voice and you know his promise, then you know what the original is and you don't fall for a false, fake opportunity. When you know the peace of God and you know what he's spoken into your life and you know what the promised land is and what he said to you, in my flesh, I'm telling you, Brooke and I had knockdown dragouts. It's like, listen, they want me to go. I don't know what to do. You stay here. You finish nursing school. We'll have to figure out how to hire a nanny for the kids. I got to go. But listen, this is the opportunity that's there. I get to work for the senior leader. I'm one of 5 people. Certainly this has to be it. But the thing that I couldn't get past and the thing that Brooke couldn't get past is that God didn't release us to do it. So yet again, we stand here saying, God, when are we going to get there? A month later, I get a phone call. And they say, hey, you're still interested in that position? I said, yeah, I am, but I can't. I can't do that. It doesn't work for my family. We're not supposed to do that. I said, what would it take to be able, what do you need? You're the right guy. We've heard you're the right guy. What do you need? I said, I need to stay here. I need to stay in Enid for another year or 2 years or 3 years. I don't know, but I can't move. I would have to work remotely. And they said, okay. I'm sorry. Hold on, did you say okay? Or no? Did you say okay or no way? Yeah, that should be easy. When do you want to start? Yesterday? The thing you need to know is that the enemy will do everything he can to throw a false opportunity and a fake promised land in front of you. And if you haven't spent time in the training camp, you may fall for it and you may be convinced that that is what the promise is. But when you know the promise of God, there's no denying when God shows up.
Thanks again for listening. We hope that this message inspires, challenges, and fuels you up to take a real Jesus to a real world. If you'd like to connect with us in any way, please go to harvestenid.com/connect. Or if you'd like to learn more about us as a church, please go and check us out at harvestenid.com. We can't wait to share another message with you next week.